Hey everyone, welcome back to Politics in Perspective. I'm going to personally enjoy this very much. My good friend Brigadier General Blaine Holt retired. I was on his radio show this past week. We were talking about the state of America, and we got into a quip about our favorite constitutional amendments. So let's bring them on right now because we're going to talk about that. General, thanks so much for joining us. I want to lead into this by uh, giving a little background on the constitutional amendments because our founders fought any amendments initially. And the reason they did this for multiple reasons, but primarily they said when they came up with the Constitution, they took the position that pretty much it's this or nothing. You have to accept this the way we wrote it, or everything will fall apart. And part of the reason why they did that is if they opened the door to every colony's ideas as to what should go in it, it never would have been passed. So there it was this or nothing. But eventually and Virginia played a huge role in this, the biggest state where many of the founders came from, of course. It got to the point is, okay, you're going to have to make a promise to do some amendments. And Madison argued against it, James Madison, which many of you know, they say is the father of the Constitution. He said, we don't need amendments on speech and these other things because, and this is the really important intellectual argument, and before I bring General Holt in, he said, we are only giving a few powers to the federal government. We have the rest of the power. So if we don't grant government the right to restrict free speech in the enumerated powers, why are you worried? Well, the answer for Patrick Henry and so many others was, well, look at history. Look what happened in England. You need those safeguards. And with that, let's bring in General Holt. How are you, sir?
I am doing very well. So, what you're really summing up is this fight about whether the idiom absolute power corrupts absolutely is a truism or not a truism. And I think in the case of Madison, James Madison, he would have said that is nonsense. We are the government is going to be full of altruistic people who will play by the rules and never do anything untoward and will limit themselves to only the powers specified. Well, I think in today's America, you can find out we've gone well beyond the scope of what was envisioned by our founders.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not a big Madison fan. Um, I'm certainly more of a Jefferson fan
Hmm.
than a Madison or a Hamilton. I'm certainly a Washington fan. But let's jump into this. Our favorite amendments. I know your favorite, so I want to tee it up for you. And we'll go to the first slide here as to the First Amendment. And when you take a look at this, Congress shall make no law. There's really not a lot of confusion here. That make no law.
It's amazing. We can interpret it, but the SCOTUS can't.
Respecting the establishment of religion, okay. Prohibiting the free exercise thereof, okay. Abridging the freedom of speech. And that's really what I want to concentrate on. If you show the next slide, uh, there was a recent Supreme Court case. These are the words of the majority as written by Gorsuch. The
Hmm.
First Amendment protects an individual's right to speak his mind, regardless of whether the government considers his speech sensible and well-intentioned or deeply misguided. And importantly, he said the government may not compel a person to speak its own preferred messages. So if we go back to the very slide where I say in my book, The Lessons of the American Civilization, dissent is the mother of democracy. And what I mean by that is you cannot have freedom unless you have the ability to tell government you are wrong and you need to change. And with that, why is the First Amendment your favorite?
Because that is the right that that gets to all of them. If you don't have this one, you don't have any of them. If the government can come in, and by the way, they're testing this as we speak right now. There is a case in Texas where a woman, I think it's in Tyler, Texas. I could be wrong on this, but where a woman is went on social media and openly complained on her Instagram that the water in her county was toxic and undrinkable. Maybe it's Taylor County, toxic and undrinkable. And the sheriff's department came by her house and locked her up because the city council said she's inciting fear in the community. And turns out she's right. Turns out that in several instances, they had the actual mayor come on and say, "Oh, yeah, we got a real problem with our water here." And so now this case goes all the way back to why in the heck would we have this right in the first place? And by the way, it's only an acknowledgement that the right exists. It's not the creation of the right from the government. It is an acknowledgement that we have this right from our creator. And yet, even to this day, if it wasn't so important to put in the Constitution, then why would it be continually tested to this day? Somebody says something, we saw this repeatedly in COVID. You talk out against Fauci. What did they spend? $15 billion of our money to make sure that we were propagandized to believe that safe and effective was true. So speech is absolutely essential to who we are as a nation, this republic. And it's also one of the reasons that so many people are inspired to put on a uniform and take up service in the defense of this nation.
Don't stop there. Talk a little bit to the what's going on in England and their arrest rate for simple speech and how that impacts
Oh
your
yes.
thoughts.
So in England, where it's funny because if you think about templates for our American Constitution, most of the British will go, "Well, you guys are plagiarists. You made that up off of Magna Carta, and you took it from where we came." But hold up. In England today, in Great Britain today, or the UK, their rights apparently do not come from their creator, because the UK is adjudicating those every single day, and they have the highest arrest rate now of any nation in the world on freedom of speech. Meaning, I think there's 12,000 arrests, is what you were saying, Tom, about or some sort of law interdiction. Where people were complaining about the unchecked migration, unchecked and undue tyrannies on their rights as citizens. And here's why that's important to us here in the United States. We support a thing called NATO, and we have a thing called the special relationship with the UK, and we have a thing called the Transatlantic Alliance. And in the space of a year, at two different Munich security conferences, both Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio have sternly warned Europe, in particular the UK, that if you're going to roll up on these rights, if we're not going to share common Western values, then we're going to have to reevaluate our relationships here. And I think that's right. I think that's appropriate because how would you get American support for the next time we have to free Europe and liberate it if they don't even believe in the same rights that we believe
Yeah, and then you brought up the Magna Carta. Thank you. A big deal about that was
in?
the right, a right to redress the government, meaning to disagree at a basic level and say, no, you can't. If you cannot, for them, say to your king, you're doing the wrong thing, you don't have a right to do this to yourself, then you are just a subject. By the way, they're still British subjects. But the point is, you have no freedom at all. And so I say dissent is the mother of democracy because democracy is dependent on our ability to disagree. If you can't disagree, you're in a dictatorship. If you can disagree, you have start the process where you can have discussions and have a democratic process in
So
ancient Greek or republic form.
now I would say on the right to redress, we're in deep trouble on that here in the United States right now. And here's why. Let's go back to my favorite Texan who mouthed off about the dirty water in her county. So now she's in the system. She's been arrested. She's going to get the right to defend herself in court. It's going to cost her money. She doesn't have access to resources. She can't go get the best attorney. She's going to be facing a county prosecutor who's prosecuted, I don't know, maybe 12, 15 cases a day, and is more than ready to lace her up. Now, there is a thing called you can defend yourself. You can go what we call per se. And if she's going to defend herself per se, meaning on her own, they can shut her down just based on the fact that she doesn't know her way around a courtroom or the process that goes involved when a first year law student would get access to. It gets far worse than that. You can go to a government that just did an easement on your property and took your water rights and your land rights for some data center. And you can say, and we're seeing this in Coweta, Georgia right now, by the way. And you could say, I have the right to redress. I'm going to the government to petition the government. Oh, do you? Well, I sure hope you've got $1.5 million in your pocket to go ahead and launch that campaign, because I can guarantee you the data centers legal departments, they've got billions to come at you and take that land from you. And so this is where I think the front lines of American liberty in a legalistic sense is. And when we defend our rights and the right to redress of the government, this is where we're getting ourselves into a lot of trouble, because it's not like in colonial days where you just go down and find a guy named John Adams, hire him as an attorney, and he's going to do a real good job for you, and it'll probably cost you half a cow or maybe a pig.
You'll also agree with me, I'm sure, when the whole Russia Gate thing was in fact designed by those inside the government, knowing that they would chill participation in speech among Republicans. I have friends who had huge legal bills who did nothing wrong,
Right.
and they think twice now about involving themselves in the governmental process, because they fear that the government will come after them, and that's how you chill speech.
It's not cowardice, because people have kids. You're going to look your kid in the face and say, I took a principled stand and it cost this family every single thing we had, and we're going to have a payment of $10,000 a month for the rest of our lives because I took a principled stand. And it gets back to the point of when people say, oh, well, we got a two-tier justice system. No, I'm going to argue you got a seven-tier justice system. And if you don't have the right resources, you're not going to be in it. But if that's the case, then what we're talking about here, Tom, is millions of Americans that are vulnerable to having property and assets confiscated because people see them as vulnerable marks. It's like I literally, I'm in business. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm always working with entrepreneurs. um, Entrepreneur has a great idea. Entrepreneur has a breakthrough disruption. They're going to go see if one of the bigger companies in the military industrial complex would sponsor that idea, maybe even invest in the company. And instead of walking into a room that he thought was going to be full of engineers, inventors, and scientists, he walked into a room full of attorneys. And the attorneys looked at the slide deck and said, actually, we've been thinking about doing this for years. This is our invention. And he said, no, it's not. This is mine. This is mine. This is my mousetrap. It's a better mousetrap. I'm looking for your help. And they said, no, it's ours. And if you want to sue us, go right ahead. But it's ours.
Yeah.
And this is where, if we're going to protect America, American liberty, and keep this a healthy republic, something now must be done about our judicial system that has basically stated that if you're not in the top 5% of earners in this country or in a big conglomerate, you have no access to the justice system.
Which steals your freedom. As I say, socialism, big government, requires uniformity. Uniformity requires conformity. Conformity can't survive with free speech. So free speech is the opposite end of the seesaw to uh, freedom. Free speech is the opposite end of socialism. All right. I want to talk about two of my favorites. Now, look, we'll talk about the Second Amendment. We'll talk about the Fourth Amendment and why they're important. But I two of the most underrated, but as you said in our conversation the other day, run over are 9 and 10, and so most people don't even know what's in the Ninth Amendment, but they're important to me intellectually, and I'm sure they are to you. But the enumeration in the Constitution, what they mean by that is what they wrote out specifically what the government can do
Hmm.
of certain rights shall not be construed or to deny or disparage others. I it's not capitalized and not, but retained by the people. Retained by the people. All right. 10th, the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Now, the two big words there for me, this is the intellectual thing, and Blaine, take off on it when I finish here real quick. The Ninth Amendment talks about rights that are retained by the people. The 10th talks about reserved by the people. The ninth talks about enumeration. The whole intellectual framework of our Constitution is that we were given rights by God, not by government. Sorry, Senator Kane of Pennsylvania, Virginia, you idiot.
Yes.
And everything comes from, and we gave some to government, but we reserved and retained everything else to us. And now we live in Alice in Wonderland. Your thoughts?
It's exactly correct. But this is where we went wrong when we did not um, really insist that the ninth and the 10th would be enforced, because over time we decided that there was a couple of slippery slopes that would take these things away from us. One of them is the Interstate Commerce Clause sounded so smart. We have an Interstate Commerce Clause, kids, because we trade back and forth, and in matters of that, the feds must adjudicate and be the senior in the issue. Well, how has that been bastardized over this time? The way it has been bastardized was you've got state A versus state B. Could be a water right thing. Could be they're trading cabbage back and forth. And so let's go with the cabbage back and forth. We have a dispute. Nevada can't stand California cabbage. Well, that's great. We're going to have to adjudicate that as a federal government, but we can't be loading up the courts with that. So let's go ahead and create an agency. And the agency will step outside of the Congress, and the agency then will have all these cool laws, and they'll litigate them right there. So there's nothing that's a law, but this agency is going to, under the ICC or the Interstate Commerce Clause, move for that. And then you get complete bastardization via the Supremacy Clause. We're supreme, and you're not supreme. So 10th Amendment be damned, states' rights be damned. You're only supposed to have enumerated powers, meaning feds, you only get the powers we gave you. Oh, no, no, no. We're going to go beyond that because we're supreme. And this is why you have an original constitution, the one that you and I love, Tom. And this is why you have 6,000 pages from the SCOTUS that's supposed to interpret what we're reading. That's why when you get into something that's so very clear to read, that a properly educated fifth grader, we don't have many of those, but a properly educated fifth grader could look and read and say, Second Amendment shall not be infringed. I get it. Or Congress shall make no law, First Amendment. And what happened here is the combination of the Interstate Commerce Clause and the combination of the Supremacy Clause with SCOTUS malfeasance, I would argue, has brought us to a place of the script is flipped. We're in a reverse pyramid. We are no longer self-governed, and that makes an omnipotent power in the swamp, or known as Washington D.C., and the stuff that comes out of the swamp may as well be stone tablets from Moses, because that's the force of law that it has. And you can be a little state out here and claim states' rights. It'll get you nowhere fast.
So, folks, the dynamic he just described is part of the law of history, which is that power centralizes over time. So, at the time of the Constitution, states didn't even really bother each other very much, except for when it comes to taxation. But they traded, but there was no government over. People traded individually. But as commerce grows, these fights occur. That's why I love the way you pick cabbage. And then politicians say, well, someone has to decide this. And that someone, as he described it just then, oh, that's the federal government. And then the federal government creates a bureaucracy. And then that's how power centralizes over time. And a centralized government is the sworn enemy of freedom. Okay, before we get to the Second Amendment, let's quickly get to the Fourth Amendment. Um, the Fourth Amendment, I was just going to concentrate on the probable cause, because our nation at the time it was fighting back against England. There were bills of attainders, and the bill of attainder was essentially, we don't like this particular person who is opposing us, so go investigate him. And the king would, push these things. And next thing you
Show me the
know,
man, I'll show you the crime.
exactly. And to have the powers that be in Washington uh, go after people, or as James Clapper sat there saying, we didn't wittingly look at everything that they were doing. That's the danger. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's far worse than that. Let me make it incredibly worse. We are we are on the eve of a suite of technologies in this nation that effectively, if they're allowed to just run their course from a technological perspective, we're going to watch the Fourth Amendment, our right to privacy, our right to fend off illegal search and seizure. We're gonna watch that get vaporized in the ether. And simply, you'll have the technologists from Larry Ellison to Palantir's Alex Karp say, "Well, that's the way it goes." We're in their own words. They say we're now going to compel good behavior out of the citizenry. It has nothing to do with the Constitution. Do you really want the nerds to dictate what your rights are? And you've got an overbearing centralized government that you just spoke of that is also one of the biggest blows we dealt ourselves as a nation. Stupidest thing we ever did was the Patriot Act. And it's gotten us nowhere, and it's now being turned against us because we have a new term called domestic violent extremist. And when you start adding that with some of the technologies coming online, like Palantir's Gotham system, which, by the way, has a pre-policing element to it, meaning we can monitor all of your data and find out if you've got bad intent and you're thinking about a crime. Does that sound like a movie called
Yeah.
Minority Report?
Yeah.
Well, this is the frontier for the Fourth Amendment. This is where so when you see people getting upset about data centers, look, I get it. Water, air, power. There's fixes for all of that stuff, and I was talking about that this week on my radio show. What's not fixable, if Americans don't do something about this, is bringing their government to heel and saying these creepy little tech clowns are not going to be infringing on my rights anytime soon. So you can start taking those flock cameras and those Palantir listening stations out of my municipality, and yet I see them going up like mushrooms all over the place because we're asleep at the switch and we're not paying attention.
We're not. And this isn't a new thing. I remember what was the Gene Hackman movie where he with Will Smith, and he talks about 20 years ago, telecom industry was in bed with government, and the movie came out in the 90s
Mm-hmm.
about turning over data. Technology makes the powers of government to surveil, it explodes. The Third Amendment says in there that you shall not quarter any soldiers in people's homes. Well, one of the
Right.
reasons why that was a thing was they wanted to watch colonists. So they put a soldier in your home. If you watch the movie Elizabeth, when she's under house arrest, she has soldiers in her home who watch over everything she does and who visits her, right?
Mhm.
Well, now we don't need
No, you got your favorite smart
soldiers in your
device.
home.
You're
They're in your
quartering them.
hand.
You're quartering them. Every
Right?
time you go ask your favorite device to go play a song for you, that device is listening to you, and that means they're quartered. Jeff
It's
Bezos lives in your house.
yeah, and maybe he only cares about making money, but the
Oh
government.
no, he doesn't.
All right, but we got a minute left. Your take why the Second Amendment is so very important, in addition to being second.
In all of Western civilization, right now, you see the roll up of rights, tyrannies, usurpations, and it got started in earnest. I would argue it's been going on for since the fall of the Roman Empire. But here we are. Since COVID, people have willingly handed over their freedom for security. There is one nation amongst them all that did not give back their guns. Australia gave them back, gave them up. Canada just recently gave them up. We have ours. I will remind everybody that Admiral Yamamoto talked the emperor out of attacking the mainland of the United States because he said guns were like blades of grass. That's how numerous they were. And so, yes, a gun is not an F-15. It's not a tank, but it's an awfully sticky wicket if everybody's got one, or you don't know who's got one and who does. And I would say it's the deterrent to actually give us the chance to take back this republic, if only we will.
Yeah, I think that's a great wind up. I'm glad we left it to the end to talk about other things. We're out of time. General, always a great conversation. That's
My pleasure.
politics. And that was an awesome conversation, but that's all the time we have for this segment. We'll be right back with Politics in Perspective.